The treatment began on a morning when two suns rose over the Valari homeworld. Yuna had never been to a planet before. All her life, she had lived on ships and space stations. But the Queen had insisted on returning home for the treatment. If she was going to risk death, she said, she would do it on the world where she was born. The palace was ancient, older than human civilization. It sat on top of a mountain, built from the same living crystal that the Valari used for everything important. The walls shifted colors with the light, going from deep purple at dawn to bright silver at noon to soft gold at sunset. Yuna would have found it beautiful if she was not so terrified. The first treatment session lasted 6 hours. Yuna had modified the radiation equipment herself, working with Valari engineers who looked at her human designs like they were looking at cave paintings. The machines were crude by their standards, ugly, rough, but they worked exactly as Yuna needed them to. When the radiation hit the first cluster of parasites, Queen Sarah screamed. It was not a human scream. It was something deeper, something that seemed to shake the walls of the treatment room. Yuna felt it in her teeth, in her bones, in some place inside her chest that she did not have a name for. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what happened to everyone else. The Valari shared a mental connection. Yuna had read about it in her research, but she had not understood what it truly meant until that moment. When the Queen felt pain, every Valari in the palace felt it too. Guards collapsed in the hallways. Servants fell to their knees. Physicians stumbled against walls, clutching their heads. Only Yuna was unaffected. Human minds were closed, alone, isolated. For most of her life, Yuna had thought of this as a weakness. Humans could not share thoughts or feelings the way other species could. They were trapped inside their own heads, forever separate from each other. Now she understood that it was a strength. She was the only one who could keep working. While the Queen suffered, the first session destroyed approximately 15% of the parasites. It also caused significant damage to the surrounding neural tissue. The Queen slept for 2 days afterward, her body fighting to repair itself. Yuna did not leave her side. She set up a small cot in the corner of the Queen's bedroom. She brought her equipment and her datapads and her notes. She watched the monitors that tracked the Queen's vital signs. She adjusted medications. She analyzed scan results. She barely slept. The Valari physicians tried to take over several times. They said that Yuna needed rest. They said that they could handle the monitoring. They said that a human had no place in the Queen's private chambers. Yuna refused to leave. "I started this," she told them. "I will finish it." The second treatment session came a week later. It was even worse than the first. The parasites had started to adapt, making themselves harder to destroy. Yuna had to increase the radiation levels. The Queen's screams lasted longer. More Valari collapsed, but the parasites died. 20% more. Gone forever. The third session. The fourth. The fifth. Each one was a battle. Each one left the Queen weaker, more fragile, closer to the edge of death. And each one brought Yuna closer to something she did not expect. She started to know the Queen. Between sessions, when Sarah was strong enough to talk, they would speak. At first, it was just medical discussions. How the Queen was feeling, what symptoms she was experiencing, what adjustments needed to be made. But slowly, the conversations changed. Sarah told Yuna about her childhood, about growing up in this very palace 3,000 years ago, when the Valari were still young and the galaxy was full of mysteries. She told her about the wars she had fought, the enemies she had defeated, the friends she had lost. She told her about being alone. "You think we are connected," Sarah said one night. Her voice was weak, barely more than a whisper. The latest treatment had been particularly hard. You think that because we share minds, we understand each other perfectly. Yuna sat in her chair beside the bed, listening. It is the opposite, the Queen continued. When you can feel everyone's thoughts, you learn to build walls. You learn to hide. You learn to never truly let anyone inside. She turned her head slightly to look at Yuna. I have ruled for 3,000 years. I have had advisors, servants, physicians, soldiers. But I have never had someone who simply stayed. Yuna did not know what to say, so she said nothing. She just reached out and took the Queen's hand. The treatments continued. Weeks turned into a month, then 2 months. The parasites fought back harder and harder, but they were losing. Yuna could see it in the scans. The red spots were shrinking. The blue neural pathways were growing stronger. It was working, but the cost was high. Each session pushed the Queen closer to breaking. Her body was exhausted. Her mind was damaged. She forgot things sometimes. Names, faces, words and languages she had spoken for centuries. On the 42nd night, Yuna was more tired than she had ever been in her life. She had just finished analyzing the results of the latest session. The numbers were good. Better than good. The parasites were almost gone. Maybe 2 or 3 more treatments, and they would be completely destroyed. But the Queen was not doing well. Her fever had spiked to dangerous levels. Her heart rhythm was irregular. Her brainwave patterns were chaotic. The Valari physicians said it was normal. They said the body was fighting to heal itself. They said she just needed rest. But Yuna could see the fear in their silver eyes. She sat in her chair beside the Queen's bed, watching the monitors flicker in the darkness. The 2 suns had set hours ago. Outside the window, she could see strange stars and patterns she did not recognize. Somewhere out there, humans were going about their lives, never knowing that one of their own was fighting to save an alien queen. Yuna's eyes grew heavy. She had not slept properly in days. Her body was screaming for rest. But she did not want to leave. What if something happened? What if the fever got worse? What if this was the night that everything fell apart? Eventually, exhaustion won. Her eyes closed. Her head dropped forward. She fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. She did not know how long she slept. But when she woke, the first thing she saw was light. The 2 suns were rising, filling the room with soft purple and gold. The fever monitors were beeping steadily, normally, safely, and Queen Sarah's eyes were open. Yuna sat up quickly, her heart pounding. She reached for the medical scanner, ready to check vital signs, ready to call for the physicians, ready to do whatever needed to be done. But then she felt something. Cool fingers wrapped around her wrist. Yuna looked down. The Queen's hand was holding hers. The grip was weak, barely there, but it was real. Stay, Queen Sarah murmured. Her voice was fragile, broken, like glass that had been shattered and glued back together. I need you. Yuna froze. In that moment, everything changed. This was not the powerful ruler who had captured her ship. This was not the cold monarch who had threatened her with death. This was a person. A being who had lived for 3,000 years, but had never asked anyone for help. A queen who had everything but had no one. And she was asking Yuna to stay. Yuna felt tears in her eyes. She did not know why. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the relief. Maybe it was something deeper that she did not understand yet. She settled back into her chair. She did not pull her hand away. I am not going anywhere, she said softly. The Queen's eyes searched her face. Those silver eyes that had seen the birth and death of stars. That had watched civilizations rise and fall. That had never shown weakness to anyone. They showed weakness now. Why? Sarah whispered. I took your ship. I killed your crew. I threatened your life. Why would you stay? Yuna thought about the question. She thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the anger, the loneliness, the long nights and the hard work, and the moments when she wanted to give up. "Because you needed me," she said finally. "And because—" She paused, searching for the right words. "Because somewhere along the way, I started to need you too." The Queen's grip tightened. Just a little. Just enough. Outside, the suns climbed higher into the purple sky. Inside, two beings from different worlds sat together in the quiet morning light. And for the first time in 3,000 years, the Queen of the Valari was not alone. 6 months had passed since Yuna saved the Queen's life. She stood now in a place she never imagined she would be. The grand chamber of the Valari High Council. The room was enormous, large enough to hold 1,000 people, with ceilings that stretched up into darkness and walls made of crystal, so ancient that it had been growing before humans learned to walk upright. The council members sat in a circle of floating platforms, each one representing a different faction of the Valari Dominion. There were generals in silver armor, scientists in flowing robes, diplomats with calculating eyes. Together, they controlled a civilization that spanned half the galaxy. And they were all looking at why Yuna. She was wearing new clothes. Not the prisoner rags she had arrived in, but a formal outfit that Sarah had given her. It was made of Valari fabric, smooth as water and light as air, but cut in a human style. A symbol, Sarah had said, of two worlds coming together. In her hands, Yuna held a datapad containing the treaty she had spent 3 months writing. Every word had been carefully chosen. Every clause had been debated and revised. It was, she hoped, the beginning of something new. "Honored council members," she began. Her voice echoed in the vast chamber. "I come before you today, not as a prisoner, not as a patient's assistant, but as an ambassador of the human coalition." The title was new. Earth's government had given it to her after learning about everything that had happened. She was the first human to ever hold such a position with the Valari. Some people back home thought she was a hero. Others thought she was a traitor. Most did not know what to think. Yuna did not care what they thought. She knew what she was doing was right. "For thousands of years," she continued, "our species have lived in the same galaxy, but in different worlds. The Valari built an empire of order and perfection. Humans spread across the stars in chaos and confusion. We have rarely interacted. When we have, it has not always been peaceful." She paused, looking around the chamber. Some of the council members looked bored. Others looked annoyed. A few looked curious. "I am here to propose something different. A formal alliance between the Valari Dominion and the human coalition. An agreement that would change everything." One of the council members, an older male with scars on his face, laughed. It was not a kind laugh. An alliance with humans? Why would we ever agree to such a thing? Your species is primitive. You fight among yourselves. You cannot even agree on basic matters of government. What could you possibly offer us? Yuna had expected this question. She had practiced her answer many times. "You are right," she said calmly. "Humans are primitive compared to the Valari. We fight. We argue. We make mistakes. But those are not weaknesses. They are strengths." She tapped her datapad, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. It showed Queen Sarah's brain scans, before and after. 6 months ago, your queen was dying from a disease that Valari medicine could not cure. Your physicians had studied the problem for 200 years. They had the most advanced technology in the galaxy. And they failed. The council members shifted uncomfortably. This was not something they liked to be reminded of. "A human succeeded," Yuna continued. "Not because I am smarter than your doctors. Not because I had better tools. I succeeded because I thought differently. Because I was willing to try methods that your people considered barbaric. Because I was not afraid to fail." She expanded the holographic display, showing more data. Graphs and charts and images that told the story of the treatment. Humans evolve through failure. Every mistake teaches us something. Every disaster makes us stronger. When we encounter a problem we cannot solve, we do not give up. We find another way. We adapt. The scarred council member was not laughing anymore. He was listening. The Valari are ancient and powerful, Una said. But you have stopped growing. You have perfected yourself so completely that you have forgotten how to change. When something unexpected happens, something outside your experience, you do not know what to do. She looked around the chamber one more time. Humans can teach you how to adapt. And the Valari can teach humans how to perfect what we create. Together, we would be stronger than either species alone. That is what I am offering. Not charity. Not submission. Partnership. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the main doors opened and Queen Sarah entered. She looked nothing like the weakened figure Una had first met in that dark throne room. She was radiant now, fully restored to her former glory. Her skin glowed with health. Her silver eyes shone with power. She walked with the confidence of someone who had faced death and won. The council members rose to their feet in respect. Whatever they thought of Una's proposal, they still honored their queen. Sarah walked to the center of the chamber and stood beside Una. She did not sit on a throne or a platform. She stood as an equal. I have heard the arguments against this alliance, the queen said. Her voice filled the room like music. I have heard the fear and the doubt and the pride. I understand all of it. She looked at the scarred council member. General Tan, you served under my command for 800 years. You have won 100 battles in my name. Tell me, in all that time, did you ever see me ask for help? The general's face was unreadable. No, my queen. Never. And did you ever see me admit that I was wrong? No, my queen. Sarah nodded. Then listen carefully, because I am about to do both. The chamber went very still. I was wrong, Sarah said. For 3,000 years, I believed that the Valari were the greatest civilization in the galaxy. That our way was the only way. That other species had nothing to teach us. She shook her head. I was arrogant, and my arrogance nearly killed me. She gestured to Una. This human saved my life. She did it using methods that I would have dismissed as primitive. She did it by being willing to fail, to adapt, to try again. She did it because humans have something that we have lost. The ability to face the unknown without fear. The queen's voice grew stronger. When my illness became known, what did my loyal subjects do? They began planning for my death. Not one of them thought to fight. Not one of them believed that the impossible could be made possible. But this human, this prisoner who I had threatened with death, she fought, she believed, and she won. Sarah turned to face the council directly. If that is not worthy of alliance, then we have truly lost our way. If we cannot learn from a species that has solved problems we could not solve, then we are not as wise as we believe ourselves to be. And if we are too proud to accept help when it is offered, then perhaps we deserve to fade into history like all the other ancient civilizations before us. She raised her hand. I call for a vote. All those in favor of the alliance, speak now. One by one, the council members raised their hands. General Tan, the scientists, the diplomats, even the ones who had looked bored or annoyed at the beginning. The vote was unanimous. Una felt tears in her eyes for the 100th time since this journey began. Afterward, in the quiet of Sarah's private chambers, Una finally let herself breathe. That was terrifying, she said, collapsing onto a couch. Sarah laughed. It was a real laugh, warm and full of joy. You faced down the High Council of the Valari, Dominion, and told them they were wrong about everything. I would say that was more than terrifying. I had help. Una looked up at the Queen. You were amazing in there. Sarah sat down beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. I meant every word. You changed everything for me, Yuna. Not just saving my life. You changed how I see the universe. Yuna smiled. So what happens now? I'm an ambassador, apparently. I suppose I should go back to Earth, report to my government, start the official diplomatic process. You could, Sarah said slowly. That would be the proper thing to do. But the Queen reached out and took Yuna's hand. The same gesture she had made on that morning weeks ago, when she had first asked Yuna to stay. But I would rather you stay here, with me. Sarah's voice was soft, almost uncertain. It was strange to hear uncertainty from someone so powerful. I know it is selfish. I know you have duties and responsibilities, and a life waiting for you. But She trailed off, searching for words. Yuna squeezed her hand. You what? Sarah looked up, and there were tears in her silver eyes again. I have lived for 3,000 years. I have had everything a being could want. Power, knowledge, immortality. But I have never had someone who made me feel less alone. I have never had someone who I wanted to wake up next to every morning. She reached up and cupped Yuna's face in her hands. Stay. Not as an ambassador, not as a physician, as yourself, as the person I have fallen in love with. Yuna's heart was beating so fast that she thought it might burst. She had never imagined that her life would lead here. To an alien palace on a world with 2 suns. To the arms of a queen who had lived longer than human civilization. To a love that crossed the boundaries of species and culture and everything else. That was supposed to keep people apart, but here she was. And she knew with absolute certainty what her answer would be. I will stay, she said, as long as you want me. Forever, if that is what it takes. Sarah smiled. It was the most beautiful thing Yuna had ever seen. Forever, the Queen repeated. I think I would like that. Outside, the twin suns were rising again, filling the palace with light. Somewhere in the distance, messages were being sent across the galaxy. Recovery was slow, but it was real. The final treatment session happened 3 weeks after that morning when the Queen had asked Yuna to stay. It was the hardest one yet. The last parasites had gathered together in the deepest parts of the brain, fighting for survival with everything they had, but they lost. When the monitors showed the final red spots disappearing, Yuna collapsed into her chair and cried. She could not stop herself. All the tension, all the fear, all the pressure of the last months came pouring out of her in a flood of tears. The Volari physicians watched her with confusion. They did not understand human crying. To them, it looked like a malfunction, like something was broken inside her. But Queen Sarah understood. She reached out from her bed and touched Yuna's hair, gentle, soft, the touch of someone who had forgotten how to be gentle but was learning. Again, you did it, the Queen said. Her voice was still weak, but there was wonder in it. And something else. Something that sounded almost like love. You actually did it. Yuna wiped her eyes and laughed. It was a strange sound in the quiet room. We did it. I could not have done it without your physicians, without your technology, without you being strong enough to survive. But it was your idea, Sarah said. Your human chaos. Your controlled destruction. She smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. My people have studied medicine for 100,000 years, and it took a human to save me. The weeks that followed were strange and wonderful. Yuna had expected to be sent away now that her job was done. Back to human space. Back to her normal life. Part of her even wanted it. She missed human food, human music, human faces. But the Queen asked her to stay. Not as a prisoner this time. As a guest. And Yuna said yes. She told herself it was because she wanted to make sure the recovery went smoothly. She told herself it was because she was curious about Valari culture. She told herself many things, but the truth was simpler. She did not want to leave. As Sarah grew stronger, she started showing Yuna her world. They walked through gardens filled with plants that sang when the wind touched them. They visited libraries that held the knowledge of 1,000 civilizations. They watched the twin suns set from the highest tower of the palace, painting the sky in colors that had no names in human languages. And they talked. They talked for hours and hours, about everything and nothing, about the differences between their species, about the mysteries of the universe, about their hopes and fears and dreams. One evening, they sat on a balcony overlooking the crystal city below. The suns were setting, and the buildings glowed like jewels in the fading light. "I have a question," Yuna said. She had been thinking about it for days, but she had been afraid to ask. "Ask," Sarah said. She was sitting close to Yuna, closer than she needed to. Their shoulders almost touched. "When I was first captured, one of the guards used a word, processed. He said my crewmates had been processed." Yuna paused, gathering her courage. "What happened to them? What does that word really mean?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Her silver eyes looked out at the city, but Yuna could tell she was seeing something else. "Somewhere else." "It means they were sent to labor colonies," the Queen said finally. "Planets where criminals and prisoners work to support the Dominion. The conditions are not pleasant, but they are alive." Yuna felt something loosen in her chest. Alive. They were alive. Doyun, Captain Park, all the others. Alive. "Can I see them?" she asked. "Can I talk to them?" Sarah nodded slowly. "I will arrange it. It is the least I can do." She turned to look at Yuna. "I am sorry for what I did to you and your people. At the time, it seemed necessary, but I was wrong." "Why did you do it?" Yuna asked. "We were just a research ship. We were not a threat to anyone." The Queen sighed. It was such a human sound that it made Yuna's heart ache. "We were afraid," Sarah admitted. "The Valari have ruled for so long that we have forgotten how to face challenges. When my illness became public knowledge, there was panic. Some factions wanted to find a cure at any cost. Others wanted to prepare for my death and the chaos that would follow. Everyone was scared." She looked down at her hands. "Your ship was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Someone in my government decided that humans might have medical knowledge we did not. It was a desperate, foolish hope. But desperate, foolish hopes are all we have sometimes." "And the others?" Yuna asked. "Why were they processed when I was kept?" "Because you were the only one with the knowledge we needed. The others were..." Sarah paused, and Yuna saw shame in her eyes. Real shame. "They were considered unimportant, disposable. It is how my people have thought about other species for thousands of years." Yuna should have been angry. She had every right to be angry. But looking at the Queen's face, seeing the genuine regret there, she found that she could not hold on to her anger. "You need to change," she said quietly. "Your people need to change. You cannot treat other species like they are nothing." "I know," Sarah said. "I have known for a long time. But change is hard for beings who have lived the same way for millennia." She reached out and took Yuna's hand. "You have shown me that change is possible. You have shown me that what we consider primitive can be powerful, that what we consider weak can be strong." They sat in silence for a while, watching the last light fade from the sky. The stars came out, strange and beautiful, patterns that Yuna was starting to recognize. "Tell me about humans," the Queen said suddenly. "Tell me how you survive." Yuna thought about the question. "We adapt," she said. "That is our greatest strength. When the world changes, we change with it. When one path closes, we find another. When we fail, we get up and try again. The Valari are the opposite. Sarah said. We perfect. We optimize. We make ourselves better and better at doing the same things. But when something new appears, something we cannot handle with our existing methods. She shook her head. We shatter. You did not shatter, Una pointed out. You survived, because of you. The Queen's grip tightened on Una's hand. When I told my council about my illness, do you know what they did? They began planning my succession. Not one of them thought to fight. Not one of them believed there was any hope. That is sad, Una said. It is terrifying, Sarah corrected. I have ruled for 3,000 years. I have billions of subjects. And not one of them would fight for me. Not one of them would risk failure to save me. She turned to look at Una, and there were tears in her silver eyes. Valari tears, glowing faintly like liquid starlight. Except you. A human I had imprisoned. A human I had threatened. You fought for me when my own people gave up. Una did not know what to say, so she did something that felt more natural than words. She leaned in and rested, her head on the Queen's shoulder. Sarah stiffened for a moment. Physical touch was not common among the Valari. They communicated through minds, not bodies. But then she relaxed. Her arm came up and wrapped around Una's shoulders. They stayed like that for a long time, watching the stars wheel overhead. I have never met anyone like you, Sarah whispered. In 3,000 years. You are the first. Is that good or bad? Una asked. The Queen laughed softly. I do not know yet, but I want to find out. She pulled back slightly to look at Una's face. I kept you at first because you were useful, because you could save my life. But that is not why I am asking you to stay now. Then why? Una asked, though she already knew the answer. Because you made me want to live, Sarah said. Not just survive. Not just exist. Live. Feel. Hope. She reached up and touched Una's cheek, wiping away a tear that Una had not realized she was crying. Because you make me feel like the universe is still full of wonders, even after 3,000 years. Una smiled through her tears. That is the best thing anyone has ever said to me. Good, Sarah said. Because I mean every word. The two suns had fully set now. The city below glowed with soft crystal light. And on the balcony of the palace, a human and a queen held each other close, knowing that everything had changed forever. The laboratory was cold. Not the kind of cold that came from air conditioning or open windows. This was a deeper cold. A cold that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Una had been working in it for 12 days now, and she still could not get used to it. The Valari had given her everything she asked for. Equipment that humans had only dreamed about. Scanners that could see individual molecules. Computers that could process 1 billion calculations in the time it took to blink. Medical tools so advanced that Una did not even know what half of them did. But none of it mattered if she could not understand the problem. She stared at the holographic display, floating in front of her. It showed a 3-dimensional map of Queen Sarah's brain. The image was beautiful in a terrible way. The Valari brain was more complex than anything Una had ever studied. Billions of neural pathways, all glowing with soft blue light. But scattered throughout those pathways, like cracks in perfect glass, were spots of angry red dot the parasites. Una had learned their story from the Valari physicians. 200 years ago, someone had tried to kill the queen, an assassin from a species that no longer existed. They had used a biological weapon, a tiny organism designed to eat neural tissue. The assassin had failed. The queen had survived. But the parasites had remained. For 2 centuries, Valari medicine had kept them contained. The creatures were slow, patient. They did not kill quickly. Instead, they spread through the brain 1 cell at a time, eating and growing and waiting. The Valari had managed to slow them down even further. but they could not stop them completely. And now, time was running out. The growth rate has increased by 40% in the last decade. The chief physician had told Yuna on her first day. His name was something Yuna could not pronounce, so she called him simply Doctor in her head. At current projections, the Queen will lose higher brain function within 5 years. Complete neural death will follow within 5 years. For a being who had lived 3,000 years, it was nothing. A blink of an eye, Yuna had asked the obvious question. Why can you not just remove them? The doctor had looked at her with something that might have been pity. We have tried. The parasites are bonded to the Queen's neural tissue at the molecular level. Any attempt to remove them also removes the brain cells they have attached to. We have calculated the required removal zone. It would destroy 63% of the Queen's brain. So you cannot cut them out, Yuna said slowly. And you cannot poison them because they are too closely connected to healthy tissue. Correct. What about targeted energy? Radiation? Heat? The doctor's silver eyes had flickered with something Yuna did not recognize. Our radiation technology is designed for precision. We can destroy individual cells without harming the cells around them. But the parasites are not individual cells. They are networks spread throughout the brain like roots of a tree. To destroy them all, we would need to irradiate such a large area that the damage would be unacceptable. Yuna had understood then. The Valari had spent 200 years working on this problem. They had the most advanced technology in the galaxy. And they had failed. Now they were asking a human to succeed. Thought it was crazy. It was impossible. And yet, as Yuna worked through the day after day, something started to form in her mind. An idea so wild, so stupid, that she almost dismissed it a dozen times. But it kept coming back. On the 15th day, she called for a meeting with the doctor and his team. They gathered in the laboratory. 7 Valari physicians who had spent their entire lives studying their Queen's illness. They looked at Yuna with expressions that she could not read. Curiosity? Contempt? Hope? She did not know. I have an idea, Yuna said. Her voice shook a little, but she forced herself to continue. You are not going to like it. Speak, the doctor said. Yuna took a deep breath. Your problem is precision. Your technology is too precise. You can only destroy exactly what you target, nothing more and nothing less. But the parasites are not precise. They are messy. They spread everywhere. You cannot hit them all with targeted strikes because there are too many targets. The doctor nodded slowly. This is known, so stop trying to be precise. Yuna pulled up a new display, showing diagrams she had been working on for days. Human medicine is not like Valari medicine. We do not have your perfect tools. When we fight diseases, we often have to use rougher methods. She showed them the first diagram. This is called radiation therapy. We use it to kill cancer cells in human bodies. The radiation is not precise. It damages healthy cells too. But healthy cells can recover. Cancer cells cannot. We damage everything, and then we let the body heal itself. The Valari physicians exchanged glances. One of them, a female with sharper features than the others, spoke up. You are suggesting we deliberately damage the Queen's brain? Yes, Yuna said. But not randomly. We target the areas with the highest parasite concentration first. We hit them with broad-spectrum radiation, enough to kill the parasites, but not enough to completely destroy the neural tissue. Then we give the brain time to heal before we move to the next area. The damage would be severe, the doctor said. His voice was cold. The Queen would experience pain, confusion, memory loss. Yes, Yuna admitted, but she would survive. And I am not done. She pulled up another diagram. Human medicine also uses something called synthetic antibodies. We can program them to hunt specific types of cells. I have studied the parasite's biology. They have a unique protein marker on their surface. We can create antibodies that will seek out that marker and destroy any parasites the radiation misses. Silence filled the laboratory. The Valari physicians stared at Yuna's diagrams, like they were looking at something from another universe. Which, in a way, they were. "This is barbaric," the female physician said finally. "You are suggesting we burn and poison our queen's brain." "I am suggesting we save her life," Yuna replied. She felt anger rising in her chest. She was tired. She was scared. She was alone on an alien ship, surrounded by beings who thought of her species as insects. And now they were calling her ideas barbaric. "My friend Do-Hyun was a combat medic," she continued. "He served in a war on a colony world when I was young. He used to tell me something that I never forgot. He said, 'Sometimes the body needs chaos to heal, controlled destruction. You cannot fix a broken bone without causing more pain first. You cannot close a wound without cutting away dead flesh.'" She looked directly at the doctor. "The Valari way is not working. Your precision is not enough. Maybe it is time to try the human way. Messy, painful, but alive." The doctor was silent for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out of the laboratory without a word. The other physicians followed, leaving Yuna alone with her diagrams and her fear. She had failed. She was sure of it. They would never accept her idea. It was too different, too primitive, too human. But 3 hours later, the crystal door opened again. This time, only one figure entered. Queen Sarah herself. She walked slowly, leaning on a staff made of living crystal. Up close, Yuna could see the signs of her illness more clearly. A slight tremor in her hands. A faint cloudiness in her silver eyes. Lines of exhaustion on her perfect face. "My physicians think you are insane," the queen said. She stopped a few feet from Yuna, stunning her with those ancient eyes. "Maybe I am," Yuna replied. She was too tired to be afraid anymore. The queen smiled. It was a different smile than before. Softer, almost warm. "Your kind destroys to create. You burn forests so new life may grow. You break bones so they may heal stronger." She tilted her head. "Perhaps there is wisdom in destruction after all." She extended one thin hand toward Yuna. "I will let you try, human. I will let you save me. I will let you save me." Her eyes hardened. "Or I will let you fail." Yuna took the queen's hand. It was cold, like holding polished stone. But beneath that cold, she felt something unexpected. A pulse. Faint but steady. Life, fighting to survive. "I will not fail," Yuna said. She hoped she was telling the truth. The alarm sirens had stopped 3 weeks ago. Yuna still heard them in her dreams. She sat in the corner of her cell, knees pulled up to her chest, counting the strange purple lights that flickered on the ceiling. 27 lights. She had counted them many times. It was the only thing that kept her mind from breaking. 3 weeks ago, she had been eating breakfast in the cafeteria of the research vessel Horizon. She remembered the taste of the coffee. It was too bitter, but she drank it anyway, because supplies were low and she could not waste anything. She remembered laughing at something her friend Diane said. He was always making jokes, even bad ones. Then the ship shook. The lights went red. The sirens screamed. The Valari had found them. Yuna had heard stories about the Valari her whole life. Everyone in the galaxy had. They were an ancient species, older than the stars themselves, some people said. They ruled over 1,000 worlds with cold efficiency. They did not hate humans. They simply did not care about them. To the Valari, humans were like insects, small, unimportant, beneath notice, until now. The Horizon had been studying a dead planet at the edge of Valari space. They had permission. All the documents were correct. But something had changed. Something had made the Valari angry. Their ships came out of nowhere. Sleek and silver, shaped like teardrops, moving faster than anything Una had ever seen. The Horizon tried to run. It was useless. In less than 10 minutes, the ship was captured. In less than an hour, everyone on board was in chains. Una remembered the Valari soldiers. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished marble. Their eyes were completely silver, with no pupils or whites. They moved without making any sound, like ghosts. They did not speak. They did not need to. Their weapons spoke for them. The crew of the Horizon numbered 42 people. Scientists, engineers, pilots, doctors. Good people. Brave people. Well, one by one, the Valari took them away for questioning. One by one, they did not come back. Una did not know what happened to them. The Valari used a word that translated roughly to processed. She did not want to know what that meant. She told herself that maybe they were just moved to another ship. Maybe they were sent to a prison planet. Maybe they were still alive somewhere. She did not believe it. But she told herself anyway. Now she was alone. The last human on the ship. She did not know why they had saved her for last. Maybe it was random. Maybe they were playing with her. Maybe they knew something about her that she did not understand. The door to her cell opened without warning. 2 Valari guards stood in the doorway. They were identical, like all Valari soldiers. Same height, same face, same empty silver eyes. One of them pointed at Una with a long, thin finger. "Come," it said. The word sounded wrong in its mouth, like it was speaking a language it did not fully understand. Una's heart beat fast. This was it. Her turn to be processed. She thought about fighting. She thought about screaming. But what was the point? She had seen what Valari weapons could do. One shot and a person simply stopped existing. No blood. No body. Just nothing. She stood up slowly. Her legs were weak from sitting for so long. She walked toward the guards, her hands shaking at her sides. They did not put chains on her. That surprised her. Instead, they simply walked, one in front and one behind, guiding her through the ship. The Valari vessel was nothing like the Horizon. Everything was smooth and curved, made of materials that Una could not identify. The walls seemed to glow from within, giving off a soft purple light. There were no corners anywhere, no sharp edges. It was beautiful in a cold, empty way. Like a tomb, they walked for a long time, up ramps that moved on their own, through doors that opened before they reached them, past windows that showed the endless black of space outside. Una saw no other Valari. No other prisoners. Just empty halls that stretched on forever. Finally, they reached a door larger than all the others. It was made of something that looked like living crystal. Colors moved inside it, swirling slowly like clouds in a storm. The guards stopped. The door opened. Beyond it was a room, unlike anything Una had ever seen. It was vast. The ceiling was so high that it disappeared into darkness. The floor was made of black glass that reflected everything like a mirror. And in the center of the room, on a throne made of the same living crystal as the door, sat a figure that made Una's breath stop in her chest. The Queen of the Valari. Una had seen pictures of Queen Sarah in history books. Old pictures, from before humans had even reached the stars. The Queen had ruled the Valari dominion for 3,000 years. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had watched species evolve and go extinct. She was, by some measures, the most powerful being in the known universe. And now she was looking directly at Una. The Queen was different from the soldiers. Where they were blank and identical, she was sharp and unique. Her features were finer, more delicate. Her skin had a faint glow to it, like moonlight trapped under glass. Her silver eyes held something that the soldiers' eyes did not: intelligence, curiosity, and something else that Yuna could not name. "Come closer," the queen said, that her voice was strange. It echoed in ways that did not make sense, like it was coming from everywhere at once. It was soft, but it filled the entire room. Yuna felt it in her bones. She walked forward. Each step felt like 1,000 miles. The black glass floor showed her reflection, and she barely recognized herself. Dirty, tired, scared. She looked like a ghost. She stopped 10 feet from the throne. She did not know if she should kneel. She did not know if she should speak. She did not know anything anymore. The queen studied her for a long moment. Those silver eyes moved over Yuna's face, her body, her hands. It felt like being examined under a microscope. "You are the one who speaks to machines," the queen said finally. Yuna blinked. What? Your records say you are a xenobiologist. You study alien life, but you also have training in biomechanical interfaces. You understand how living things connect to technology." Yuna swallowed hard. Yes, I studied that in university. But I'm just a scientist. I study alien biology. That is all. That is not all, the queen said. Her voice was flat, certain. Your captain spoke of you before he was processed. He said you were the smartest person on your ship. He said you could solve problems that no one else could solve. Captain Park. Yuna felt tears sting her eyes. He had been a good man. A kind man. He had protected his crew until the very end. He was wrong, Yuna whispered. I am nobody special. The queen tilted her head slightly. It was a strangely human gesture. We will see. She raised one hand and made a small motion. Suddenly, Yuna felt a force grab her legs and push her down. She fell to her knees hard, gasping in pain. My physicians have failed me, the queen said. She leaned forward on her throne, and for the first time, Yuna saw something in her perfect face. Weakness, exhaustion, pain. They have had 3,000 years to learn, and still they have failed. Perhaps a human's primitive curiosity will succeed where their wisdom has not. Yuna looked up at the queen. She did not understand. What do you want from me? The queen smiled. It was not a kind smile. I want you to save my life, human. And if you cannot... She paused. Then you will join your crew in oblivion. The guards grabbed Yuna's arms and pulled her to her feet. As they dragged her away, the queen's silver eyes followed her until the crystal door closed between them. Yuna did not know what was happening. She did not know what sickness the queen had, or how she was supposed to cure it, or why the Valari would ever trust a human with something so important. But she knew one thing for certain. She was going to survive. No matter what it took, because Yuna was human. And humans did not give up.